Hey everyone, it's Russ, and welcome to another episode of Women's Retirement Radio. Today, I am excited to have a friend and colleague on, Matt Regan, who is the president of Wealthcare Capital Management, which is my parent firm. So, Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Russ. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, so you and I've had the opportunity to get to know each other the last few years, but for our listeners, why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. I joined Wealthcare about it's gonna be 3 years in August. I had worked as the chief operating officer for a $2 billion RIA down in Philadelphia called Westcott Financial, and I was presented the opportunity to take a look at Wealthcare, which is a really interesting and different company with some exciting technology, and I think a real good solution for advisors like you, Russ, and like the other 150 plus advisors that we serve. My background is I'm not an advisor. I never was an advisor or had a client or a book of business. I've always been on the operations and technology side of financial services. I began work at a clearing firm, and I then ran a broker dealer, which was one of the industry's first kind of online investment banks. I ran that for about 13 years. And then I did some independent consulting before I joined Westcott. So that's kind of where I come from. I have, a great deal of respect and admiration for the advisors that we serve, because it's something that I never had the guts or the initiative to do, which was to start my own advisory firm. So I'm really glad to be at Wealthcare and really glad to get to know advisors like you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And if I'm not mistaken, you actually have a background in education. Is that right?
Yeah, I was raised in a family of educators. My mom was a school librarian, and my dad was a college professor for about 55 years. My background was, I got a master's degree in history from the University of Toronto, and then went right into teaching myself. I taught 3 years of high school at a school that serviced kids with learning disabilities. So really different, world, teaching special ed and kind of getting to know that part of it. But I was presented with an opportunity because the money was so awful in the private school that I taught, and I had recently been married. I was presented the opportunity to kind of start at the bottom at a clearing firm called BHC Securities in Philadelphia, and that's when I switched over to financial services.
Do you, just with kind of that background in mind, do you think that your, I guess, education and actually a few years of work as an educator has carried over or informed or helped you in your roles in the financial services industry?
I'm sure it has. The way I think about it is, I was young and lucky enough to be put right into the classroom setting without a lot of training and without a lot of background. I didn't student teach. I had a master's degree. I got a teaching certificate. But then I was kind of thrown right into the classroom, which, happens only in private independent schools, not in a public school. But one of the things that I learned in my short career as a teacher was that I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know, the answer to every question. I didn't know whether what I was doing was correct. And I kind of carried that through my career. I'm the leader of the company in the sense that, I've got the office that says president outside, but I'm, quite aware that the people that work for me, the advisors that we serve, have much more experience in this world than I do, and I'm, somebody that is quite willing to defer to somebody else's expertise. And I think I picked that up, in my teaching career.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I always find it interesting to kind of get an understanding of kind of where people came from and how that's influenced or, weighs into kind of where they're at today. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What Matt, can you share something maybe that you consider interesting about yourself that maybe most of your friends wouldn't be aware of? Put you on the spot.
Yeah. One of the things that I think that people find interesting about me is that, when it comes to where I grew up and what I did, was that I did go away to Canada to college. I live outside of Philadelphia. I was born and raised here, but when I graduated high school, I was in my mind that I really wanted to go away for an adventure. So I went to the University of Toronto, St. Michael's College, the University of Toronto, and lived 4 years up there, which is really the biggest adventure of my life. I then scampered back to the Philadelphia suburbs, and I've been here ever since and raised my family here. But that's one of the things that not everybody knows about me.
Interesting. Any particular, this is a few years back now, but any particular reason why you settled on Toronto over like another adventure, to use your words?
Yeah, we did. I did have we did know people in Toronto, so it wasn't a complete. My mother's friend lived up there, so there was somebody that we knew. I just loved it. I mean, I'm still a huge Toronto Maple Leafs fan. I was, I love the city. I try to get back there as often as I can. It's actually, I canceled a trip during COVID last year because the borders are still aren't open up there. They've had a really tough time with the with the pandemic, but. I just love the place. I love the city, and I love my 4 years up there.
Yeah. So we kind of established a little bit of a background, and you've shared a little bit about what you do, and you basically run, a pretty large and growing financial advisory firm. I guess, since our audience is mostly consumers, and it's kind of geared toward retirement planning around women, could you maybe talk a little bit about what you do from the perspective of our listeners out there that might be working with a financial advisor or might be interested in working with a financial advisor? So kind of couch it maybe in terms that might speak to a consumer as opposed to another advisor.
Yeah, well, Wealthcare is a different kind of advisory firm. When I describe what we do, I think I describe it in terms of what you do as an advisor, Russ. What all of our advisors do is, you guys are business people running independent practices. You deal with clients on a day-to-day basis. You provide them holistic, wealth management services, which includes financial planning and investment management. You're a trusted advisor and guide for your clients. Wealthcare kind of runs in the background there. We have a platform and a piece of technology and an investment solution that the advisors that we serve take advantage of. Well, why? Why would they do that? Why wouldn't they do it themselves? Well, I think, if you think about it in terms of time, the highest and best use of the advisor's time that we serve is to spend time with the clients, to help them, to be, meeting with them, to be, growing their own practice, maybe getting referrals from clients, working with clients on an ongoing basis. The least important thing that an advisor can do is to spend time opening accounts, billing, trading, doing compliance, or even running the investment portfolio. That, I think, in many ways has become something that advisors are very comfortable outsourcing. So we provide those services so that the advisor can spend his time, with the most valuable part of his business, which is the clients. If I think about it in terms of, the revenue generating activity in an advisor's business is client facing. We handle kind of all the non-revenue generating business. So, going back to your question, what do I do day to day? What I try to do is listen to our advisors and provide them the technology and the operations and the services that they need to deliver their incredibly valuable service.
So kind of using that as a backdrop, what would you say that you and or the firm, what's the biggest challenge that you help people address or solve? And I guess it might be helpful to get your perspective on that from how do your advisors help their clients? What's the biggest challenge maybe that you help the end clients address or solve?
Well, yeah. So I think the thing that we do really well, and the delivery of the comfort zone, and wealth care as a service is what I call it. We have a very unique wealth management delivery system that's unlike really anything else in the industry. And that's kind of the basis of our company. It's a technology that's based upon goals-based financial planning and a goals-connected investment portfolio. Where I think it's important, unique, exciting, and really powerful is that it really answers the one question that all clients have on their mind is, am I going to make it? Am I going to have what I need to live the life that I want and the retirement that I want? And we've got a very sophisticated piece of technology, as well as a very motivated and incredibly talented group of people that help to deliver this wealth care as a service, through the advisors. So, when I think about what my biggest challenge is we've added a lot of advisors in the last few years that really are just getting their feet wet with the comfort zone, wealth care as a service, goals-based planning. One of the things that we need to do better here is to help them understand the power of wealth care as a service, understand the power of the comfort zone and how it transforms the advisor-client relationship in a really, really important way. So I've been kind of working with my team to do a better job of delivering that message to our advisors.
And is there, in your work with both advisors and maybe hearing some of their successes with their clients, is there a favorite success story that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, we have so many advisors that far predate my involvement with the firm. They're kind of the group of true believers, and I would put you in that category, Russ, that really understand the comfort zone and really understand why it's so transformative to the advisor-client relationship. But the stories that I love, when I came into this with no background in financial planning, no background in kind of goals-based planning in particular, the stories that I love are the ones that kind of center around the fact that, clients are shown that they're taking too much sacrifice in their one life. If your comfort zone score is over 90%, if you have a 95% of likelihood of achieving all of the goals in your plan through the best and worst markets in history, which is calculated through a simulation engine, then you're taking too much, sacrifice in your lifetime. And the stories I love are when advisors tell me that they sit down with a client and they say, hey, you're at 95%, you have a 95% comfort zone score. It's time to buy that boat that you've been talking about, or it's time to take that trip, or it's time to take less risk in the marketplace. Those are the really powerful stories, because I don't think that the traditional advisor thinks in those terms. The traditional advisor, in many ways tries to inflict as much pain and sacrifice on his clients or her clients as they possibly can. Whereas our advisors who use the comfort zone, effectively, actually put their clients in a scenario where they're living their best life.
Would you say that's really the kind of the crux? I mean, you spoke earlier about how you think, well, you don't think, you stated earlier that, wealth care and how we do things is different than anything else you've ever seen in the industry. And you've been around for a while. Is what you just explained as far as like really focusing on helping clients, make the most of their life and, optimize their opportunities to do the things that are important to them or important to the people that they care about. Would you say that's kind of really the crux or the heart of what kind of makes us unique in the financial advice space?
Absolutely. I think it's something that, first of all, I don't think clients come into the relationship with their advisors thinking that that's even a possibility, right? That the advisor is going to say to them, hey, we're all good here. We can make some changes to make your life better right now. I'm not sure that too many clients go into the advisor-client relationship with that even in the back of their mind as a possibility, number one. Number two, we've done, kind of the heavy lifting on the math, on the simulation engine, on the Monte Carlo projections, on the historical returns in the marketplace, so that we are very confident that through, thousands of scenarios in the marketplace, that we can deliver something that we put a stake in the ground and say, you're going to be good. You're going to be okay. We've got the ability to assure clients and their advisors that we're providing, really, really good, powerful advice that's going to make their lives better right now. And I think that's unique. I think that's our special sauce.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I clearly am. I guess maybe we're both a little biased, but I agree, and I think that's a well said way to approach it. So yeah, thanks for that. What you've been doing this for a while, Matt, both at Wealthcare and your previous experience with Westcott and elsewhere in the industry. What surprised you most about your work, and maybe more specifically about your work with financial advisors and indirectly with their clients?
Well, first and foremost, I didn't even have a true appreciation, of the momentum towards independence that was going on in the marketplace. I was relatively new to the RIA world, the fee-only RIA world, when I joined Westcott. I had come from more of the broker-dealer, wirehouse, investment bank, Wall Street world. And when I got to Westcott, it was very much a traditional straight-ahead, RIA firm that had employee advisors, and the clients belonged to the firm. Great business, and delivered tremendous service, but there was this whole world out there that I didn't even know about. And that was, essentially that people were, leaving the wirehouses in droves, leaving the insurance broker-dealer in droves, getting rid of their broker-dealer licenses, going fee only, and starting businesses. It's a trend in the industry that Wealthcare is right in the middle of, trying to help advisors to successfully do that transition. But I didn't even know it existed. So that was kind of the first eye opener for me. And then when it comes to how our advisors work with clients, I'm actually, incredibly encouraged by how willing advisors are to give up the reins when they join us. You're an old timer, Russ. You've been around here for a while. You've gone all in on the Wealthcare way and Wealthcare as a service, the comfort zone. But I'm always incredibly encouraged by how advisors come in, and we have some excellent, recruiters like Russ Reinhardt, who explain the value of Wealthcare to these advisors. But they kind of, innately know that they shouldn't be, trying to beat the market with investments. I mean, I've said it a million times, Jack Bogle at Vanguard, got $7 trillion proven to people they can't beat the market. So I think it's really, it's surprising to me that these advisors, when they do join, and we say to them, stop doing that, stop doing, trading, stop doing compliance, stop doing investing, that they are, ready to embrace an outsourced solution.
Yeah. What one of the things that I've learned in my, years kind of focused on serving women and their families is that, their children are important to them. Clearly, your children are important to you. I think that's not, going to be surprising to anyone. So kind of with that in mind, let's say that a high school senior or maybe a college student approached you, Matt, and said, hey, I know a little bit about, the financial advice industry. It seems interesting to me. I'd like to learn more about, what's involved or maybe pursuing a career in financial advice or the financial industry, not necessarily as an advisor.
Mm-hmm.
What advice or guidance would you give to maybe a younger person in that situation?
Well, I can tell you, Russ, I've given it, a number of times, and I really do think, for a number of reasons, that it's an opportunity that, that college students and recent college graduates should pursue. And I'll tell you what I say is that, look, the financial planning, industry, the financial planning, world is just emerging as a specialty in the college ranks. You go to schools like, Texas Tech and Temple here in Philadelphia. These schools have built financial planning majors. Virginia Tech's another one. We've got some advisors down there in Blacksburg that are all Virginia Tech grads. that program is emerging and relatively new. It's an incredible, it's an incredible curriculum that really prepares, the right people for, to kind of land right in the industry. Number one. Number two, when you talk about, the career path, and particularly for female graduates of financial planning programs, it's 100% employment. When you walk out of college with that degree, you have job offers in hand. And it's also, incredibly, high employment rate for males in the industry. This is a gray industry. You and I are young fellows, Russ, compared to the rest of this industry here, but this is a very gray industry. And it's a problem in this industry for a number of reasons. Number one is, you don't have enough young advisors in the industry. Number two, the older advisors don't have succession plans in place, which is a whole nother conversation that we talk about quite a bit here at Wealthcare. But because of the opportunity in the industry, I think it's an incredible thing for college kids to think about and focus on. But the other piece of it is it's so different than the other business degrees that are out there. Where else, in college can you focus on, how to be empathetic, how to deliver, real life-changing advice, and at the same time learn the discipline of planning and all of the things that go into that capstone and the CFP exam. It's a really, really, kind of robust and well-rounded curriculum. And I do think, it's a great way for, the next generation to get into our industry.
And to kind of underline what you just stated about the graying of the financial advisor ranks. I haven't seen the stat in a while. You may know what it is, Matt, but I saw it a few years ago. I think it said the average age of the active financial advisors was 65 plus or something like that.
It's close to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate that perspective, both as a parent, but also as bringing your experience both in education as well as in the financial services industry. So I think that's I think you bring a pretty neat view into that.
Yeah, that's a scary number if you think that the average age of advisors in our industry is over 60. That tells you right there we've got work to do to get more people into the industry, because there's a whole generation. It never stops. There's a whole generation of emerging wealth that's out there. And there's a whole generation of next gen clients that are now, creeping into their high earning years that need to be served. They need the help that you and the other advisors provide, because it's critically important to, we have a retirement crisis in this country. We all know that. Not enough people have enough money to retire comfortably. And we haven't solved for that, and the crisis has only gotten worse. So we need to help people in this industry, and we need to get people, literate in financial services. I think one of the things that so great that you kind of focused on women is the reality is that women are at a disadvantage for a number of reasons in this, as far as wealth management concerned. Not the least of which is they've not been involved in kind of the financial wellness discussions all the way along, in their married lives. So when it comes time, for women to be on their own, they're already a step behind where they should be with regards to financial literacy, what's going on with their estate, what they need, what they have. So I think it's awesome that, that you've chosen that as an area to focus on.
Yeah, well, thanks. You could not have set up a better segue into my next question. So, clearly the name of this podcast is Women's Retirement Radio. And as you just alluded to, that's the primary focus of my work and the clients that I serve. So, Matt, when you think of the word retirement, what comes to mind for you personally?
Well, to me, it's all about security, right? It's about, there's a great unknown out there. And that unknown, is more acute for women than it is for men. And that unknown is longevity, right? I think the cold statistics is that women are going to live much longer than men, and that's an ongoing fact. So really, to me, retirement is all about planning for that unknown, which is longevity. I'm actually going through an issue right now with my in-laws, where they haven't done a lot of the work to plan for their own well-being in retirement. It's not so much a money thing as it is where they are physically, who's going to take care of them, where they're going to be as their health continues to kind of fail a little bit. It really kind of rings the bell with me that, retirement is something you need to plan for in all different phases. Where are you going to be physically? Who's going to be around you? What are you going to need? And then when it comes to finances, are you going to have enough so you're not a burden on somebody else? I mean, that to me is kind of my impressions of retirement, if you will.
Yeah, and you said a couple of things that come up regularly in my conversations with clients and other people that I'm introduced to, and it's the idea of wanting to be prepared and make sure that they're going to be okay, but it's really important. Maybe a top priority for a lot of the women I talk to. They don't want to be a burden on their children or their family, and so. But on the other side of that coin is something you alluded to earlier, which is equally as important, which is I don't think anyone wants to be so well prepared for tomorrow, whether that's 5 years or 50 years from today, that they're sacrificing or making decisions today that make them not necessarily make them miserable, but maybe they're not doing everything they can today to enjoy their financial resources along the way. So I think it's really striking a balance between being well prepared for an uncertain future, uncertain both in terms of economy, markets, tax legislation, longevity, but at the same time making sure that you're enjoying your financial resources and enjoying your time with your family, your friends, your children, your ability to travel along the way. I mean, would you say that's a fair characterization from where you sit?
Yeah, and I think that's the best case scenario, right? Is that there are choices that you can make to kind of increase the enjoyment that you have in the present day, that isn't going to hurt you on the other end. But I'm a worrier by nature, and probably a lot of financial planners are too. I'm not a planner, but my concern is when it comes to women in particular that there are structural impediments to that world where many women won't be a burden, right? I mean, we have a horrible wage gap in this country that nobody seems to want to address. Women don't make as much as men and are doing the exact same thing. I mean, that's just a fact, right, across the economy. So that's already starting in the hole. And then when you come to a divorce scenario, I mean, the fact that women's incomes decrease so dramatically in a divorce situation as compared to men in the divorce situation, those are two structural impediments that really concern me when it comes to planning for retirement for women. So I love the fact that our approach allows advisors to provide not only the comfort zone score that gives people confidence, but I also think that there's things that we need to address as a society that are kind of stacked against women to begin with.
Well, and you've already kind of touched on the longevity issue, and you just now spoke of kind of the wage gap, which is only exacerbated in a divorce situation. But what do you think is the biggest challenge and maybe it's one of those, but what do you think the biggest challenge women face when they're planning for their own retirements?
Well, I think it's that combination. If I could, kind of not answer your question, I'd put kind of those four things together. It's not being involved in the household finances, throughout, their lifetimes. That's a problem. The longevity issue is huge because, the bottom line is that, that's an uncertainty there's a certainty in the uncertainty, and that's that women live longer than men. The wage gap and the issue of how that affects a divorce situation. If you put those four things together, I think that's the challenge that advisors like you have to help women address.
And from your position in, running a financial advisory firm, a unique financial advisory firm with, I think, what do we have, over 150 advisors now that have, various and different affiliations with the firm, and then all of their probably thousands of clients if you add them all up. How would you say that your work and the work that you do as it trickles down to the advisors and ultimately to their clients, how does that impact women and their families as they're planning for a transition into retirement or into kind of the next chapter of their life, which might not necessarily be sitting around and not doing anything. They might continue to work or they might volunteer. But what would you say the impact of your work and the advisors' work impacts women specifically around retirement?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, having a financial plan, right? I mean, sometimes we get a little wrapped up in our own work and we think, hey, we have this version of financial planning and, and it's different than maybe a cash flow financial planning. And, there's certain benefits to the goals-based approach. And, remember, that's way inside baseball for what's going on out there. The idea, the idea that everybody's in a financial plan is just inaccurate. I mean, we have a small portion of the population even works with an advisor. So the work that we do, hopefully is supporting, some, increase in the number of people that are even in plans or working with advisors, because, the biggest issue is when it comes to financial wellness in this country is, number one, we don't pay, middle class and lower class workers enough. Number two, we don't have financial literacy and planning support across the population. So, hopefully we're addressing some of that. And then, with regards to, kind of the specific delivery of the comfort zone, we had touched upon this before, but, the idea that we can give assurance and wise counsel when it comes to planning for retirement and planning for, a fulfilling present life as well as a fulfilling retirement life, and kind of lifting that burden on the heirs. Hopefully the work that we do to support advisors is kind of addressing that, across the board.
Yeah. Yeah. I thank you for that perspective. I think there are no shortage of challenges, for women specifically, but people in general. And, I know you and Wealthcare and our colleagues are out there fighting the good fight, but it's not a fight or a battle that's going away tomorrow. So,
right.
So as we kind of start to wrap up the conversation, Matt, you're a busy guy, you're running a growing company, you've got a family, but when you've got an hour or two to yourself, and that might be rare, but let's say you've got an hour or two to yourself, how do you most enjoy spending your time when you've got a little time to yourself?
Yeah, I'm a really bad golfer, but I love to get out on the golf course and play golf. And it's weird. If you asked me that a couple of years ago, my great joy would have been sitting on the sidelines watching my kids play sports. But now they've gotten older and they're starting their professional careers. So I'm finding more time for myself to, kind of, get some work done around the house and, God forbid, even read a novel, here and there. And that's kind of new for me because, my kids are 25, 22 and, 20. So, they're kind of in that transition phase. And it's become a transition phase for me as well.
What's a book you've read recently that really, stuck out in your mind as being something good or that you'd recommend to others?
Oh, I just read a great book by an author named Colton Whitehead, and it's called Sag Harbor. It's a story of, the African-American New Yorkers back in the 60s and the 70s and their community out on Long Island, their summer community for and it's a kind of a coming of age story, which I really liked. So I would recommend that to anybody.
Oh, great. Well, thanks for that. We'll include that in the show notes for this episode. So we've covered a lot, Matt, and this has been a great conversation. So thanks again for joining us. If there were one thing that our listeners could take away from our conversation today, what would you want that one thing to be?
Well, let's keep it real, on topic. I mean, I think the bottom line is if you're not working with an advisor, I encourage you to find an advisor to work with. I think that again, there's a retirement crisis in this country, and the only way we're going to address it is by increasing financial literacy and having advisors, help clients through, what is a really, really difficult and challenging, problem, which is, how do I organize my affairs, my assets, what I have, my goals? How do I organize that into something, that I can call a plan, a roadmap, and point myself in the direction so that I'm not, lying awake at night with my eyes wide open. So I would just say, let's keep it right there and say, find somebody and talk to somebody about what the plan is to get you, the life that you deserve.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And to be clear, this is not a subtle pitch for people listening to reach out to me, because frankly, I'm not going to be the best advisor for everybody out there listening to this, but I do think there's a lot of value in talking to several advisors and finding one that you like and trust, and that you feel like you can work with for hopefully many, many years to come, to kind of take some of the anxiety and worry around your money off your shoulders. Matt, what's let's say somebody's listening to this and maybe a consumer, maybe an advisor, but let's say they want to learn more about you or about Wealthcare. What's the best way for people to get in touch or to find resources where they can learn more about the work that you're doing?
So our website is wealthcaregdx.com. That's GDX for the goals driven experience. And if, there's all sorts of information on our advisors, the comfort zone, our unique approach to the delivery of wealth care as a service. All of that's on there. And there's also, quite a bit of kind of curated content that consumers or advisors might be interested there. So I would encourage people to go to our website and kind of poke around and find out what we're all about. And, if there's anybody that wants to reach out and call me directly, my phone number is right on there. Yeah,
thanks. Thanks, Matt. And we'll be sure to include that website link and other details in the show notes along with the book recommendations. So appreciate all that. Any final thoughts? Anything else you want to add before we call it a day?
No, I appreciate you having me on, and obviously we appreciate you as an advisor and advocate for the firm. So thank you for that, and I wish you all the best with the podcast and your continued success in business.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, and thanks everyone out there for listening. Again, this is Russ with Women's Retirement Radio, and we look forward to catching up with you on the next episode. It's Russ again, and before you go, I want to provide a brief disclosure. You should consult a financial advisor familiar with the specific circumstances of your unique financial situation before making any financial decisions. Nothing in this broadcast constitutes a solicitation for the sale or purchase of any securities. Any mentioned rates of return are historical or hypothetical in nature and are not a guarantee of future returns. I'm a financial advisor and an investment advisor representative of Wealthcare Capital Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor based in Richmond, Virginia. The views discussed in this podcast are my own and may not be consistent with or represent those of Wealthcare Capital Management.